really captured my attention, and I felt like I'd be missing out on a really great opportunity just to become, friends, family, and for a certain cause, which is Parkinson's awareness. The big thing, which I love, is
Yeah.
I have a section now called the Together for Sharon podcast, and that's
Mhm.
actually my wife and I. So now it's not just me, it's my wife, and it's great because you have a female caretaker perspective. We
Sure.
just did one with Power Over Parkinson's, Margaret.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Just want people to know that they have someone like me out there fighting for them, and I'm never going to stop till they have a cure for them. Together for Sharon again came about just to remember my mother and my journey,
Yeah.
but now we share others. So if you go there, I always have it with me 24/7.
Yeah.
It'll say our story about us. It has all the interviews. And somebody wrote me the other day. I was shocked. They said they spent 10 hours reading interviews. It's like a
Holy cow.
heartfelt. Yeah,
Oh,
because
wow.
they felt alone, but then they see there's people like you there. There's people that have been diagnosed. It's not Michael J. Fox found it, and then they're like they don't feel alone anymore. They can always turn to it. It's free.
Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in. So, in this episode, I talked with the founder of Together for Sharon, an amazing organization that's really on a mission to help people with Parkinson's. And the founder of Together for Sharon is Dr. George Ackerman. I spoke with George at length. We had a wonderful conversation. We've been following each other for quite a few years. I've certainly been following what he's doing with Together for Sharon because this entity here is really, if you go to TogetherForSharon.com, just how it sounds, just spell it all out, TogetherForSharon.com, you're going to see an enormous amount of resources, enormous database of resources to go and learn about Parkinson's and how people are, let's say, fighting back against it. His mission is to find a cure for Parkinson's, and you're going to see in this interview his passion for doing just that, and his passion for helping people, to educate them, to create awareness around Parkinson's as to what it is, how it can affect people, and what maybe we can do to help the person who lives with Parkinson's. So enjoy this episode, and be sure to go to TogetherForSharon.com. Again, it's TogetherForSharon.com. And contribute a story there too if you have a story, because it's a beautiful, beautiful resource. He's doing a great job. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks again for tuning in. Here we go. Dr. Ackerman, how you doing, my friend? It's good
Good,
to have
thank
you
you.
here.
Thank you, and I appreciate your time and all your viewers. It really means a lot to me.
Well, it means a lot to me to have you here. We've been communicating, I don't even know how long anymore, but it's been a while. Like you said before the camera started rolling, I feel like I've known you for quite a while.
Well, some of the things I see that you're doing is really inspiring, and it keeps me going. So really captured my attention, and I felt like I'd be missing out on a really great opportunity just to become, friends, family, and for a certain cause, which is Parkinson's awareness.
Well, appreciate that very much. And I know you're real busy too, and I appreciate you taking this time. And we're all busy trying to help people, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is more important than really life itself because it's been about on 1/1/20, my 2020, my mother passed, so that'll be 4 years. So the holidays are coming. It's a tough time, but really, this is
Yeah,
my
sure.
priority. I don't want other people to go through what my mother and I did, so that's why we fight.
Beautiful. And I say that meaning what you're doing is beautiful, and I'm really sorry about her passing, of course. There's so many people going through so many difficult times right now, and um, there's so much that can be done. What I love about what you're doing is you have built this wonderful community with Together for Sharon. Sharon is your mom.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
And
and that's why I go by Sharon's son, George. I don't care about the doctor or the background as a lawyer or cop or whatever, but it's really just important to remember because I wouldn't be who I am today or the man I am if it wasn't for my mother's sacrifices.
well, yeah, what I wanted to just kind of go into here is how did this all come about? Together for Sharon. I mean, I sort of know the story, but if you don't mind giving some backstory to this, so our listeners, those who don't know about you, will learn how
All right.
Together for Sharon came to be.
I really appreciate it. I never trained or took a course to become a caretaker. It's kind of just thrown into it out of nowhere. My mother had Parkinson's for about 15 years. Thinking back now, I don't know if she felt ashamed or didn't really know what it was, but we weren't really aware. We only saw her left arm was kind of shaking a little, but it didn't affect her as an independent woman. She drove, she shopped, she had her friends, but after about 8, 9 years, it started getting worse. One day she decided, and the whole family did, that she would go to do a special study. When she came back that night, unfortunately, I don't know if the medicines were changed too drastically, but she ended up, I ran over there at 4 a.m. She had been moving her furniture out of her house because she thought someone was inside trying to harm her. So imagine a son or anyone, finding your mother like that. I found out the dementia had set in also, and the hallucinations and delusions took over, and I had to rush her to the hospital. They saved her life, but when I went back to her home to pick up clothes, I noticed there were post-it notes around her room, and there were on each note was either animals or people who actually passed away that she didn't know if they were there or not present. So that really was the night that threw me into her world, and I really had to take some action, and that was just making sure she was comfortable and really trying to find a cure. But even though I was unsuccessful, my life's goal now is to share TogetherForSharon.com. It's really just resources. It's become something more. Honestly, I put it together because I thought it would remember my mother and my journey as a caretaker. But in just a few years, it's gone beyond that. We have, in the last 4 months, as you know, you're one of my favorites. I've been honored to have over 400 interviews throughout the world with people who are either diagnosed, working in the field, foundations, but it's really what drives me to continue going forward.
Well, I appreciate you also with your patience and persistence with me
No,
because
some
I'm not
people would say
always the
I'm,
easiest guy to get a hold of
yeah. Well,
or respond. And
that's
it's not
actually,
because I don't want to.
I
It's just
know.
sometimes it's
That's
so busy I don't know what to do.
yeah, my only heartbreak right now is the journey either that I don't know or that I haven't shared because you do such incredible things, and there's some people, even if we reach one, if I could just find one person in the whole world that learns about Carl and what amazing things you do, then I feel like I've done a difference. So there are still people obviously out there that are busy and things, or maybe I don't know them, and those are the ones that really break my heart because I want to share their journeys.
Well, I admire all that you admired you and admire you and what you do, and you're too kind, but thank you.
No, I
I
appreciate it.
I think on my end, what happens is I get inspired and then I get stagnant where I need to learn more. I'm just coming out of one of those stagnant phases where I feel like I don't really know anything anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I have to purposely dive in and start to dig and find something to inspire me from another perspective. And I did. I found quite a few things, and now I'm working on those, and that's helping me to help people and more effectively. But I'm curious to know. So your mom, you had that night where she was moving things out of her house. Now this is something that's an extreme, but it's
Hmm.
not unusual, and that's the sad thing is this is not unusual. When you have the, let's say, the delusions, hallucination, or um, that comes along a lot of times. It comes along with the Parkinson's.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of statistics out there I could rattle off. One of them is that people with Parkinson's are much, much more likely, and I can't tell you how much because it used to be 6 times more likely, and I think it's changed. But let's just say at one time, years ago, it was 6 times more likely to develop dementia,
Hmm.
which usually involves some type of hallucinations or delusions. And sometimes those delusions can be fun. Sometimes they're life threatening. They could really actually damage somebody. And what do you mind sharing Are there other examples your mom went through of that? Because this is not well known, and unfortunately, sadly so, and I'm in a medical facility here.
Right.
These doctors understand this and they're on my page, but a lot of the doctors are not even aware, or they'll just deny, they'll just say, oh, no, no, delusions, no, that's not Parkinson's. No, it can be. Are there other things she went through similar to the post-it notes and moving out furniture and this and that?
And my mother was very healthy until unfortunately this set in stages, the various stages, but we think she did have also dementia. There was another example that saddens me where I was sitting with my daughter and my mother on her bed one Sunday morning, and my mother started hugging her pillow and saying how much she loved Brooke, my daughter. So my daughter, and that's why I'm actually working on my first book now on Parkinson's awareness. It's about my mother and my journey. And then I like to do the interview book, and then another one will be a children's because I didn't know how to explain to my daughter what was going on. So that was one other example, but there were other times where we didn't get to it, but I have a background in law enforcement and the legal system. I actually took my mother, for safety to shoot once. So she had a weapon in the house. I had to remove it. She also was the sweetest, kindest woman and the friendliest you'll ever meet or I've ever known. And one time, I think it was just because she was frustrated with the disease, she even threw a light against the wall. And those are signs that, things she would never have done. And one other one is we had to remove her phone towards the end because she was scared and she was calling the police. So these are some of the symptoms and things that we saw, unfortunately, that never would have happened if she had not been diagnosed or saw the progress and really the decline of Parkinson's. It felt like every day there was just, and every time I tried to do something to help, whether it was therapy or music therapy, therapists, doctors, we went to 16, but it would just feel like every day was another thing, like a hammer hitting me on the head, and just couldn't beat the thing, the disease.
Heartbreaking because, there a lot of times there's fear involved in these
Right.
hallucinations. I know of various stories. One, I know somebody personally who was hallucinating worms on her plate in her food. So she was malnourished because she wouldn't eat because every bit of food on every plate had worms in it, even though there were no worms. That's what she saw. I mean, on another side of things, just for those who might know of somebody going through this, um, we always hope that if somebody has a hallucination or a delusion, that it's not a scary thing, frightening for them, where they put themselves in jeopardy or they're not safe because they're running out in traffic or something. But there was a gentleman in Maine when I was teaching there years ago, um, and this is kind of where I make the distinction between knowing you're having a hallucination versus not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people are aware, like this gentleman in Maine. Well, yeah, whenever I go out and I walk down the sidewalk in the village and I see the fire hydrants are waving at me. All of them are little dwarves, cute little dwarves that wave. And I know that they're not dwarves and they're actually fire hydrants. But they're not threatening. I wave back. People think I'm crazy, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Then there's the other situations, which are you think somebody's there, an intruder, and you're sure they're there. They're not. But who knows what people will do if they hurt themselves somehow or they get hurt trying to get away. And so if anyone out there starts to see somebody going into this behavior with these type of situations, Parkinson's or not, take note and get to a doctor who will listen because there are medications that can help. I'm not a pill pusher. I'm also not a doctor, but if I was, I'd be pushing whatever I can without meds first, but there's time and place for everything. So there's some pretty good meds out in there that help with some of this.
Yep.
Tell me more about, I'm curious to how this community you've developed is growing so vast and huge. I'm happy for you and proud of you and excited for you. What do you have as your set of goals besides a cure? I mean, we'd all love to find a cure. That'd be the best thing in the world. What are some of your goals?
I have a saying. I usually say it at the end, but my real goal is that I want people in the Parkinson's community to know that we love them, we support them, we care about them, and that they're never alone. I'm going to advocate for them, and along with individuals like you, I feel that together our voices are so much stronger. And I always joke, say, I'm just getting started, which is not true, but I feel like it's like you said, I'm renewed. About 4 or 5 months ago, the website was up for 3 years. It was, again, more of a journey of my mother and myself. But then I learned about the World Parkinson Congress, which I never even heard of before. And that's part of the problem is I want, that's why I do this. I want people all over the world to know about it. So when I knew there was about approximately 1 million people in the U.S. with Parkinson, but then I was shocked to find out there's about 10 million in the world. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not about me and my mother anymore only. Obviously,
Mhm.
we still matter, but this is about everyone. So that's what really kind of like a bubble or like a light in a cartoon just flash. And I'm like, why don't I try and share one person's story? Maybe they can, like let's say your work. If I share again with one person, maybe they'll learn and they'll want to use your services and they might improve their health, which I believe could. There's so many people out there, but we don't know about them. So I did one.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it became two. Well, even talking to you live today, I did an interview with someone from India. So now I've actually interviewed people from the US, UK, Australia, France, Spain, Italy, England, others I can't even, Japan. So I've actually, and it's not like a goal to hit every country and Africa, but my goal is really to share these things around the world because, like in Africa, I learned, which is sad, and you might know, they think of if you have Parkinson's, it's witchcraft, which is really sad, and that hurts
Absolutely.
funding. Yeah, that hurts funding, hurts those diagnosed and the caregivers. And also, the best thing in the world, literally now, is the United States. We have the first ever and national plan to end Parkinson's disease, which the Michael J. Fox Foundation spearheaded. It's actually finally Friday moved from the floor, committee to the floor of the House. So that's inspiring news because that'll
Yeah.
help finally, the first time, which is sad, that will ever fund families and those diagnosed and more scientists for research, and we can really push forward. But I don't know, I can't believe in our United States history there's nothing for Parkinson.
Yeah, I know. And it's the second most
Yep,
um, common
fastest.
neurological disorder after Alzheimer's. Especially at Parkinson's. Then I think MS might be a distant third, with about 400,000 people. Last I heard, this is 2, 3 years ago, versus 1 point something million with Parkinson's in the U.S. and then 5 million with Alzheimer's. And there's a lot that can be done to, well, some people won't be happy when I say this, but I will say it anyways. We know through the research that there are ways, generally, I should say generally speaking, for most people, no one's the same, not everyone's the same, not everyone's affected the same, but there are ways to slow it down. We don't know about reversing that yet, though. Alzheimer's, we have seen reversals in early stage, but not everyone. Parkinson's, it's more like a disease management or symptom management strategy. And so we do know that cardio, elevated heart rate, creates neurochemicals in the brain that are like protective, like brain-derived neurotrophic factors, a hormone protein growth chemical that attaches to hormone or brain cells and helps to, let's say, prolong their structure, their integrity, their functionality, and their lifespan before they die. These brain cells. So it's great for our brain,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping that cardiovascular up to par the best we can because did your mom have any symptoms,
Yeah,
anything like rigidity or
yeah,
difficulty breathing at any point? Because that's really
yeah.
common, especially later stage.
She had trouble with her left arm stiffness, and then later,
Hmm.
as it went on, the curling of the toes, the dyskinesia, the dystonia. She also had major stomach issues. So she was again perfect health before all this started to just set in and deteriorate. And it's really horrifying. I mean, that would be a different time to talk. But as a caregiver and a son, it just you sit there, you almost don't know what to do, feel alone, lost, and you want. I don't lie. So she would ask me, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to live? Am I going to be there for her granddaughter's wedding? And it's like very difficult. You just, don't know what to say. But all the signs you said, yes, unfortunately, she did show them. But like another problem is, and I don't think we might have mentioned, it's some individuals misdiagnosed. Some are diagnosed, but again, I don't know if they take it serious or they don't really. My mother, I don't think really was aware either because we were told again by several doctors, you don't die from Parkinson's, you die with it. So we were shocked to find out, in her 68th year, she's only 69, that's a baby, in 2023, that this would accelerate so fast and take her life. But so I don't feel we were all really prepared, and that's what I want to do is make sure others speak about these tough topics like end of death, dignity, medical marijuana, and fitness. Like we've done so much more research, as you mentioned, from 10 years, 15 years now, showing that it is obviously a neurological disorder, but that fitness exercise can slow the progression. We didn't even have that chance. By the time I got involved, it seemed to
Yeah.
be too late.
It's not household knowledge yet. Still, it's not a topic of conversation that happens daily in a household situation. It's not common knowledge. It's not shared enough.
Yep.
And people like you're doing it. I do it. We do it. But and a lot of people are doing it, and it needs to be done. But it needs to be done more and more and more because the awareness needs to be spread throughout. So this interview is totally about you, but I'm going to say something that I'm really excited about. So January 21st, and I would like you to be a guest, please. I start a radio show on the largest, oldest AM radio station here in Syracuse every Sunday, noon to 1 Eastern Time. And I am so excited because this is going to be a platform where I can bring special guests such as you. I'd love to have you join me sometime in maybe February, March, and just get you on the airwaves and spread that word because it's a well-followed show that I'm taking over from the doctor upstairs. And that is my, hopefully, a little dent in making a dent in the knowledge and having it spread. Because these should be this should be common knowledge. Everything you just said should be common knowledge. And that's what we preach, you and me. I'm preaching it, baby. I'm preaching it.
I would love that. And a lot of the things that you share, I mean, the machines and the technology and the work you do, that's something that I find very rare. And that's what I was intrigued about and not giving up on you when you said you're busy because no one does stuff like that. And I think that's hitting edge, like things that we need. And guess what? If someone doesn't want it, fine, but at least they know it's out there. But if they don't know, that's the problem. And that's what frustrates me. So I commend you again, not just for the future radio show, but all you do. And whenever I see that, I have a lot of back issues, which is for another podcast, but I always want to jump on these machines and have you help me too.
You got to come over, man. You're in Florida, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
you got to come up to New York someday. Come to Syracuse. We'll throw you on this thing.
I'm originally from Brooklyn for 18 years, hard time in Brooklyn, New York.
There you go, man.
That's what got me into the law enforcement field, New York.
We're working on opening some affiliates. The first one's going to be Nashville this weekend. Actually trying to get something going in Naples, Florida, but that's got to be a year away. I'd like to just expand this. It takes money, it takes time, it takes energy, and you have to have the interest level out there. So that's probably the first thing, So tell me, you because I haven't caregivers are not heard enough. Okay, you were your mom's caregiver. Tell me, as a caregiver, what type of advice do you have for caregivers currently? Because of course, we have millions of them, and a lot of times we know all this. Well, I could rattle off stats again all day. I like numbers, but 70% of caregivers usually end up with some form of and level of depression. Not that you had it or you have it, but that's just one thing. But they end up with a loaded plate. And I'm curious to know your experience with this, but based on your experience, what advice do you have? What takeaway message do you have for caregivers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still grieving even today, 4 years later. It's the holidays. We used to hold a little chair for my mother, even though she wasn't there.
Hmm.
We had I call it a weird relationship. She was my best friend. I spoke to her like 10, 20 times a day. Any good things happen, any bad, she would be the first to know. So now when I do things, it's like I feel like calling her, but obviously she's not there anymore, and it's all because of the disease. So it's hard to really. I would never regret what I did. I mean, I used to be a big athlete, basketball player, fitness trainer. I'm certified, and a lot of it had to take a back seat. So my own mental health was suffered. I also have family, 3 children, and my wife. Thankfully, I have a very supportive wife, and my mother and her loved each other. So she would understand. Writing my book now about literally going deep dark into the days of what the last year of my mother's life. I actually videotaped it and took pictures, but I won't share it. I don't want her to be remembered for that. But I did keep a journal, and that'll be shared. It's like every day was just literally tough, one thing after another. I felt alone. I felt like it was never going to end. Some days I didn't know. We swore we would keep my mother at home, and we did. But there were days where I said maybe I should put her in a home because I can't handle it. We also had to spend about $12,000 a month just for caretakers to kind of babysit in a way because I
Yeah,
didn't want her to fall. Because as we know, if
sure.
somebody falls, it's worse. So those
Yeah.
are some of the tough struggles I had. But I do remember even one Sunday morning, I was getting ready to play basketball with friends. I put all the gear on, which takes me like hours because I'd broken every body part. And then as I was about to do it, my mother called panicking, and I dropped my life and went to help her, even though
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything, just to be around her. She
Hmm.
seemed to be a little more calm when she was with the grandkids and me. But she panicked a lot when I wasn't there. She would actually say that all the caretakers were hurting her or they were,
Yeah.
hitting her. So I had to install video cameras, and luckily they weren't. They did neglect her at one point because she didn't sleep. She had major stomach and gut issues after all this constipation, and
Sure.
so many other after effects that we just never have the time. But really, as a advice, there's not much. Unfortunately, every person, like you said, is different. Caretaker and individual diagnosed. The only thing I could say is you never want to regret anything. So you always want to be there for them, hold their hand, walk them through, and just comfort them. I think she would love the idea that I was just with her and, whatever we had to fight, we would fight together.
Yeah, man. I I teach workshops. I've been teaching for years around the world. We always have people with Parkinson's in attendance. We have caregivers. We have aides. We have fitness trainers, physical therapists, sometimes doctors. And one thing we know for sure is that the caregivers really have a loaded plate. And in fact, I had one gentleman. It was so heartbreakingly sweet. In Denver, they had driven from Portland, Oregon to Denver to come to workshop a few years ago. And we introductions in the room. Hi, I'm Carl, and blah blah blah. And, go around, and he got to him, and he said, "Hi, I'm so and so," and he's got his arm around his wife. We have Parkinson's. She didn't have it, but he did.
Yeah,
But the way they look at it is really it's a team effort. I mean, this is a team deal. You're not that you have it, but you're dealing with it probably almost as much as the person with it is dealing with it in a way, right?
yeah. In reality, I mean, I could still get it. We don't know the causes and things, so I'm not.
Sure.
I'm optimistic, but you never know. That yeah, I mean, I felt like I was going through it with her. Obviously, I didn't have the physical effects, but I had
Right.
other physical effects. I was stressed. I was burnt out. I mean, you name it. I felt like I didn't eat right. So you
Yeah,
could definitely kind of correlate the two for sure.
absolutely. So now tell us I know this. I'm asking you questions I know the answer to, but this is for the viewers, for the listeners, because this is going to go on, YouTube and all the other listening platforms too, like Spotify and
Right.
iTunes and wherever. Where do they find out more? What's the website address?
Sure, it's www.TogetherForSharon. It's all spelled out, and it's really just a homely place. I wanted to make it clear we do not accept donations. I'm not here for money. I don't want anything. Like it sounds almost shocking or vulgar, but I'm telling you, my friend. I don't want anything. I just want people to know that they have someone like me out there fighting for them, and I'm never going to stop till they have a cure for them. Together for Sharon again came about just to remember my mother and my journey,
Yeah,
but now we share others. So if you go there, I always have it with me 24/7.
yeah,
It'll say our story about us. It has all the interviews. Somebody wrote me the other day. I was shocked. They said they spent 10 hours reading interviews. It's like a
holy cow.
heartfelt. Yeah,
Oh,
because
wow.
they felt alone, but then they see there's people like you there, there's people that have been diagnosed, as found, Michael J. Fox found it, and then they're like they don't feel alone anymore. They can always turn to it. It's free. I even post stories like you're a great my expert because you know I didn't charge. I don't want anything. So I literally had your
Wow.
interview. It's up there. I'm going to share it, and I also my goal is to share them every year. It's not like today. It's not like we do a podcast and say goodbye. I want this to continue. We have to bring life to these things. It's not just a run and done like basketball. They say, but
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of a continuing
yeah,
dialogue too, because I'll reshare podcasts I've
right,
done from time to time years ago that I think the information's relevant and maybe reach a new bunch of followers or whatever. But also doing another one sometime down the road. You know, you
oh
may
yeah,
have
oh you're
something
gonna be,
happens,
yeah, we're
where
gonna,
we can talk more. Maybe there's something big that happened,
oh
and
yeah,
let's share it because we want. I love your goal of awareness is so admirable, so needed. And there are a lot of there's some good organizations out there doing some things. Or Davis Finney's doing some nice stuff.
yeah,
Michael J. Fox does their thing. There's some small ones out there, but but the thing is each group and you have your set of followers and it's growing, and I love that. And you're doing a really great job, man.
thanks. Yeah,
You're
we
doing a
even
great
have.
job.
I appreciate the support and send it back to you too. And even if you go to the website, you'll see under partnerships, and actually a lot of the organizations you just mentioned, like Davis Finney's there,
Hmm.
Brian Grant Foundation.
Oh, I
We
love Brian.
yeah, we have a donation section, and it goes. It's nothing with us. It goes directly to a page that's in memory of my mother. But if you donate, it goes to the like American Parkinson's Disease Association. We've raised about $10,000 in the last 4 years. A lot of it
Beautiful.
was our money we donated, but just they actually showed up, and my mother they were the only ones who showed up when we needed help. Unfortunately, the programs they offered was too late, like moving and punching, but it
Yeah,
was really meant a lot, so I don't forget. But we have a lot on here, and I just
yeah,
tried to organize it, and now we have the podcast. My big thing, which I love, is
yeah.
I have a section now called the Together for Sharon podcast, and
Hmm.
that's actually my wife and I. So now it's not just me, it's my wife, and it's great because you have a female caretaker perspective. We
Sure.
just did one with Power Over Parkinson's, Margaret.
Yeah,
She's amazing.
that's
And
great.
Drive for a Cure, some incredible organization. And also, I started the first thing, and I could be wrong, but my research, there's nothing like it. We started our first podcast called Unscripted, and what it is it's four of us, three individuals who you might even know, really popular on social media, but they all have, I don't know why that happens. I just saw balloons fly.
It looks cool.
If you put three fingers, this is the second time, I'm not going to move, but it's actually a podcast where it brings three people who have Parkinson's together with me, a caretaker. So we get to talk about important issues. And honestly, I'm in a weird world right now. Unfortunately, I don't have Parkinson's and I'm no longer a caretaker with someone living with Parkinson's. Kind of lost in the middle, like a loved one who lost their loved one
Mhm.
to Parkinson's. And there's nothing out there. So I've also been talking to a group we might start our first support group ever for someone who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's next year. So
That's
there's
a
a
good
lot of
idea.
I, I've gone to many, and I feel so bad because it's like I can't say anything with people who are still alive, the caretakers of Parkinson's, because I don't want to offend anyone. And there's some tough topics, like I really wanted to speak about, medical marijuana, death with dignity, and just
Yeah,
dying, just the topic of dying. If we don't talk about these topics, you'll never be planned properly. And no one wants to talk about them because they're depressing or fear them,
yeah.
but it's reality.
But if you when that surfaces, please share it because
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
if that's open for people to
It
know
is
about it, learn about it. I'll
for
share it
everybody.
everywhere. My following's been growing a lot. I'm grateful. Thank you, whoever, wherever, however, and from above for this, because it's been a real blessing to have so many people receptive to the work we do, but also the information we share, like this here, now, today. And so it's togetherforsharon.com,
.com. Yeah. And
and
it's really just about it's really just about being all of us together to really support each other, to remember my mother and my journey as caretaker. But there's a lot of things on there, and you can spend a lot of time over the holidays. But
sure,
it's again, it's part of it's sad to me that you can't do stuff and
yeah.
just and not there's no intentions behind it. Like I don't want anything. People actually, when I started this years ago, thought maybe I'm not real or my mother didn't have part. It's like, no, there are people like you and me who want to just help people, and I don't want anything in return.
Well, that's just shows to your character as a real stand-up, uh, amazing member of community, and just doing things that help people. And in my opinion, I'm just going to be right out there with it and say, just doing the right stuff, man. People need help.
I
People need
appreciate it,
help
Matt.
everywhere. You're in law
Yeah,
enforcement too. You have a law enforcement background. You know people need help. You see the other people who are causing the different levels, causing
yeah,
problems for people who need help. I mean, there's people causing problems who they need help too. So there's a lot of people on a lot of levels and a lot of different coming from different worlds and backgrounds that need help. And if we can all just get along and help each other, boy, it would be really cool. And it would help
yeah.
so many people to feel better, live better. You're doing that. There's one thing I want to say that you addressed a few minutes ago. I just want people to be very mindful of something that George said about misdiagnosis. And the reason I'm not letting this go is because here, as a clinician, if you will, uh, I don't even know how many times a month I see people coming in diagnosed a certain way, and it's not right. Okay, we have it on both ends. We have it where they're diagnosed without Parkinson's, and they definitely have it. We also have it where they're diagnosed with it, and they definitely do not have it. And let me tell you something. You got a dopamine deficiency happening in a Parkinson's brain. Well, if you don't have Parkinson's and you're on levodopa, pardon my language, shit's going to change and it ain't going to be good. And it's usually things like hyper this and hyper that, and maybe shopping too much and gambling and hypersexual. There's so many negative things that can happen, or you just go to sleep. There's usually one or the other. You sleep a lot or you're hyper everything. It's almost like addiction coming to life that you didn't have prior. So if you question the diagnosis that you are given, get a second opinion. If you don't like that one, get a third one because it's worth it. Because this is potentially, and I say that life altering in a potentially very bad way, and none of us need that. So misdiagnosis is. I understand that I'm not a medical doctor. My son is. His PhD had to do with neurodegeneration of the brain. So that it's not easy. I mean, my son doing this, he's telling me as a medical doctor, well, it's just not always easy. Well, absolutely understand. And a misdiagnosis, that can happen. So it's not necessarily you have a bad neurologist or a bad anybody, but you want to really, really, really dig into that if you feel that it's not right. Because if a medication is given and behaviors change, or if somebody has Parkinson's and they don't get the medication they need and they're starting to, all kinds of bad things are happening and they're falling down and whatever, you just take it seriously, folks. Get a second, get a third opinion because you just can't put a price on the proper diagnosis. So they can
Yeah,
treat it better. You got to get it treated right.
what you're saying brings back tougher memories after my mother had passed. I had like honestly 4 huge black garbage bags of medicines, and that kind of worries me because it's just too much. Like each medicine does something to your body differently, maybe cause stomach issues or this or that, but who knows, all the mixing them and what they gave her, and we're trusting that nurses came in, gave the right amount, and we're paying a lot of money, 12,000 a month for aides to keep a journal and write it, but who knows if they were really following it. So you're
Yeah.
trusting, your loved one's life with these people, and it's frightening. But I don't know about 5 bags and 4 bags of medicine, what that does to anyone, even if they have Parkinson's or don't. So that's kind of when you talked about it, brings back troubling memories, and I'll
Yeah.
never have an answer. But it's just you also don't want to be over, dosed on these things. It's very frightening.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not a medical
remember
doctor. I'm not a
that,
medical doctor either. I just base everything off my experience with my mother and our story.
you know, a lot of times I found that the caregivers have more knowledge than the doctors treating the person with Parkinson's. Sometimes to the point, not medical knowledge, but behavioral and whatever knowledge, whatever they observe that, for example, a doctor may not see. They may not see, God forbid, somebody falling in their office. You don't want that. They don't want them to come in an off period. They don't
Right.
want them to come in without dopamine in effect to the maximum because they want to see them when they're moving well. So they don't see them not move well. But, I've had people, I remember teaching in England and a lady telling me, we're talking about over medication of levodopa or Cinemat, whatever she was on. And then she got into hyper eBay purchases. And the classic
Mm,
story of that is she wanted to buy one purse. So she went on and she bought one. Then she found another one, bought that. She ended up putting in bids on 90. I remember the numbers. I just don't remember numbers. It's crazy. 97 bids. She won 79 of them.
mm,
And then she starts getting over the next couple of weeks all these boxes at her house. And her husband's like, why do you have all these purses and where's all the money in our account?
mm,
I couldn't control myself. So I'm joking in a way, but this is not a joking matter because it really affected them economically. They weren't able to afford those purses. Some of them were pretty pricey, I guess. I don't know, but she sold a lot of them. But she also first took a trip to her neurologist and said,
mm.
this is not right. So he lowered the dose and boom, that desire went away. No problema. So that the ripple effect that improper dosage can be pretty deep. There's a lot to take seriously. The whole thing is serious.
Especially when you have no, like me, I had no training, not even know what medicines or what it is, what time, what day, what happens if you don't take it, miss it.
Yeah.
And you definitely, and I like that we're talking about this because it brings me back, but I do remember, I just wish I knew what I knew now then, but my mother had different highs, lows during the different times of the different medicines. A lot of time that she did, if you see someone, not everyone, but with Parkinson's, they have certain movements, and she, towards the end, she was doing that a lot. Like it was almost like moving, not tremors, but more like uncontrollable
Like a
moving. And
dyskinesia.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then when she would take the medicine, it would calm down. But I just wonder how if it was too much medicine and things like that. I'll never know. So
No, it's hard. You don't have the counterfactual to go back and
yeah,
redo.
right.
And I mean,
Even if we
yes,
did, I still don't think I'm equipped with the medicine. That's why we were lucky.
sure.
In a bad way, we were actually, they had a special program with a year-long hospice. Most times in hospice, you're only
Hmm.
there, sadly, for a few days, but we were in for a year. And it
Wow.
was just horrible seeing her, every day. It was the last 7 days of her life. She just had a heartbeat. And Florida doesn't have death with dignity, which I think is really pathetic because we treat our animals better than our loved ones. So
Hmm.
we just, the family gathered around, just stayed with her for 7 days around the clock. We didn't know
Yeah.
when, what, and all they would do is like morphine. And so it was just horrible, the whole situation. But, I try to bring some of the bad from that into the good in the world today. And it's funny you mentioned Earl. So caretakers, for some reason, I was shocked the other day when someone mentioned, I didn't even think of it, that there's basically zero male caretakers at all, like speaking, at all, like in my book that I'm working on, our journey, I don't, there's no other books from Sons for Parkinson that I'm aware of, but it's sad that more men aren't stepping up, I guess, or maybe they're just quieter. But I was shocked when I found that out because I didn't even think of that. But, it's my mother. I would never change anything. I would have been there
Yeah.
24/7. But I was, again, surprised that there were more women, I guess, than male caretakers. Just the fact that I was shocked.
Yeah, well, I mean, up even like 4 or 5 years ago, the numbers were saying that Parkinson's affects twice as many men as women, and then for MS, it's twice as many women as men. I think Alzheimer's might be more women than men, 2 to 1, approximately. But that would, the if the man gets if a man is more prone to getting Parkinson's, because that can go into that whole research thing of like what type of lifestyle do they live based on their occupation and what were they around toxins and this and that, or are they wearing dry clean suits all the time? Because that's the latest thing. One of the latest things is that the tetrachloride, or I know that's not the right chemical, but it's something like that. If you just Google Parkinson's and dry cleaning, you're going to find out that there is a higher percentage of white, it just happens to be white males for Parkinson's, professionals, for dry cleaning suits, and it's because that particular chemical never evaporates, so that's why they use it on uh,
No, I don't feel
dry
like taking
cleaning.
my. I might take the suit off and throw it
So,
into
and not to scare anybody,
yeah.
but it is true that there is a higher incidence of that from the dry cleaning. So, but anyways, jobs, lifestyles, what they're around toxin wise could be factory work, coal mining, welding, paraquat applicators, agricultural people,
Yeah,
whatever.
the big one.
Men tend to have those jobs more than women, so maybe that's why. But the bottom line is, we don't want it to happen to anybody. So what you're doing is great for awareness, and I appreciate so much you taking the time, George, to join me today because I know you're really busy and well, we both are. So it's hard to figure out a time, but we finally did
No,
it.
never too busy if you ask me about Parkinson's awareness because I think again it's part of my my heartbeat now because I feel like I'm trying to just bring my mother's memory forward, and I'm praying my kids someday will continue it on. Otherwise, or I'd rather have a cure to be honest, and I don't care. But
Yeah,
if not, if it's not, I want it to continue because I think some people, my mother felt very alone, afraid. I think she felt ashamed. I think that I've been writing a lot now. I'm in the chapter now. Not supposed to talk about the book, but I can't help it because I do it a lot with it. I'm in the chapter now writing about my thinking about like going back and why didn't she tell us the first 7 years? Not just tell us, but I didn't know what the heck Parkinson's was, is, how, why, when, who. I just knew my mother had something called Parkinson's. She had trouble with her left arm, but we ate out, we all went to shows, we did
hmm,
everything. So all of a sudden that one night changed my life forever. Thankfully I had a few years after with her, but it was nothing like something positive. Every day was unfortunately worse and worse. Even one day that I recall, not to take much more time, that she woke up and her whole side of her face was droopy. And I thought she had a stroke, but she didn't. It was part of it came back, but then she had troubles talking. And it was
oh,
just like every day was another thing. And this is a beautiful, young to me, 60s is young and
yeah,
independent. Drove, shopped, movies, did everything.
yeah,
All, all in a year or two. Went from long walks to cane for 2 years, from the cane to the walker, from the walker to the wheelchair to bedbound. And that was it. I don't understand still today. I'm not asking for an answer, but I'm just baffled how that progresses so quickly in just
yeah,
a few years. So, that's something I'll just have to live with. And I'm still researching. I read a lot of books on Parkinson's. I'm just
yeah.
finished reading End Parkinson's by some incredible authors like Dr. Dorsey and,
Oh, great.
so,
Dorsey's
and
right down the road from me too.
oh,
Kevin
really? He
Dorsey.
did an
Yeah.
interview. He did an interview too. He's a great person. But I ordered like 20 books on Amazon for the holiday on Parkinson. Some
Oh
people
man,
would
that's
probably want to
great.
read some fun stuff, but to me, you have to, if you're going to be talking like we did, you have to have some background. And my career has always been geared towards criminal justice system, so I might be an expert there. But I think that I kind of equate my work has always been on victims' rights. I fought for African American mothers who lost their loved one due to murder
Mm-hmm.
in West Palm Beach, Florida. A lot of the system forgets the family. So you have a victim
Oh
and
man,
then the
yeah.
family. But I kind of equate that to Parkinson's in a way because until now, a lot of the families and the patients have been forgotten by the system, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's health care or funding. Now we're hopefully, after this podcast, literally it might change in 2 weeks, but we got to get more awareness for all these things, and I'm not going to stop till we find a cure.
I love that, man. Boy, I could go on. There's another thing I was thinking. I'll just say it real quick, but
Sure.
um, we'll end soon, just because you have things to
Yeah.
do, and I should get going in a
Mhm.
minute. But you were talking about in some communities, like I can tell you for sure, in Uganda, there's an association there run by, I think it's Kabugo
Actually,
Hannington.
I interviewed him and him. He's a
Did
friend of
you?
mine.
Yeah, yeah. He's a great guy. I
He was
love
just
him.
given, I congratulate him today. He was given an award by the World Parkinson Congress for his work.
I
It's
heard
online
about this. I need to
today.
send him a note. I love him. His
He's a really good.
story, he wrote. Oh, you are getting my books soon. They're on their way.
Oh wow, I
But
love it. Love
his
reading.
story is in. I think it's my second book. I can't remember, first or second. About in when his mother had Parkinson's, they thought it was contagious.
Mm-hmm.
So like the father moved the family out, and I mean, it's not contagious, but people think that it is still in a lot of places. And they're more in, a place that's not so, let's say, us, well, in Uganda, for example. I don't know what other countries, but there are societies that believe it's witchcraft,
Right. I was just going to say.
it's contagious, and it's not, and it's real. And it's not, it's sad because then these people get vacated and they're alone and they die alone and they're malnourished, and it's a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. So while some listening may think, well, that's ridiculous, of course we know it's not. Not everybody knows it's these things. And so that's our goal, is to reach deep into these pockets of the world to share this knowledge that this is not witchcraft. This is not contagious. There are things we can do to help. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So thanks again, George. So TogetherForSharon.com. That's the place to go to learn. You're also all over social media. You're everywhere, and I love it. You got a
Yeah.
great presence on Facebook, Instagram, and I think LinkedIn. I know you're on LinkedIn too, and maybe some
TikTok.
other.
I swear I've never been on TikTok, and there you are. We're on
There you
TikTok.
are. Yeah, yeah. It actually works. It gets. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of them are different. They bring me closer to people like you, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful for. One last sad story. There's someone actually on TikTok. She has Parkinson's, and she's really uncontrollably shakes. She was banned on the live portion, which is sickening because she makes a living on it. Somebody reported her for being drunk and drugged, but she doesn't have that. She had
Oh,
Parkinson's. So
man.
I reached out to her. I wrote her and said, I'm an attorney for completely free. I'll help you fight this. She was able to get back on. I didn't have anything to do with it, but at least she knew I was there to support her, and
That's
she's back
good.
on. But it's really sickening to that's the awareness, and that's why we have to keep fighting, because no one should ever mistake in that. Number one, they shouldn't do
Yeah.
that anyway. Even if they
No.
had that, it's not your business. But she made a living through TikTok. I didn't even know you could do that. I don't get anything for any of
Yeah.
this. I
I've
don't
heard
want it.
about it.
I didn't know. But here's a poor lady to pay for her own Parkinson's medication. She's just on there, and it's sickened me. And now we're family too, because I want to share her story someday. But it's just that every morning I wake up. On this note, will end. But every morning I wake up and a new story pops up, and I get like it's almost like I tell my wife when we met I had butterflies, but I get little butterflies
Yeah.
of inspiration because there's so many people still out there that are just not heard. And I really just, if anyone's listening, I'll repeat it. We send our love, our support. I care a lot about you, even if I don't know you, and you're never alone. I just want to keep advocating, and together our voices are so much stronger. But reach out. You can go to the website under interviews. You click a button. You can just send your email, and you can share your story. And
Beautiful.
that's all. I just want to. toughest thing, even holidays, is the one person out there, that I don't know about. And like, I was so excited to speak to you because you're like, I have like two or three people I just really was anxious and excited, and you were one of the top to be able to, because the things you're doing are
You're
just
too kind. Well, thank you.
incredible. Thank you all, and thank
George.
you for the listening.
By the way, I know people who've personally been called on, like the cops are called on because one picking out birthday cards or something in the pharmacy once, and they thought she was drunk. She wasn't drunk. She was Parkinson's. I mean, it's so sad. Of course, the police were fine when they got there. They realized that she's not drunk. But I mean, to think that somebody is and they're not, and then that humiliation, that goes along with that, it's just horrible. So
maybe you can, I'm actually planning in the future to write a book on the law enforcement field because it's to my heart. I want to have reform, whether it's through Congress or just to change the whole entire first responder field in the United States to get more awareness. Because right now, as a professor or faculty member and a trainer at the academy, there's not even a second or the word Parkinson's in the protocol or the standard operating procedure. We need to have it added. So if I do the research, maybe you can also be a writer with me, because I'm going to have to reach out to people who've had bad experiences. And I want to make a last point. I don't blame police at all. I just think, it's just maybe it's the timing, or they're just not knowledgeable on it. So this is a book that's going to be pro-police. It's not against them, but it's more for awareness again. I'm not looking to start a whole revolution here. I just want people to pull someone over and not treat them differently because they have Parkinson's.
And this is speaks even more to your efforts and your goals here of reaching people, and I just love it, George. Thanks a million for joining me. You and I'll be in touch real soon. But I appreciate this very much. Remember, everybody, TogetherForSharon.com. The link's going to be in all the descriptions. Wherever you're listening or watching, it'll be there. Just click it, go, and just go, because there's a lot there. Tons of stuff. All right, my friend, let's stay in touch. We got lots more to do together in the future.
Thank you and all your listeners, and have a great holiday. Your time today means the world to me.
My pleasure, completely. Take care, my friend. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.